Are you?
Yes. Are you
Okay.
recording?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I saw this TikTok today
Mm-hmm.
where a girl went to a Harry Styles concert.
Who's that? I'm just kidding.
And she brought a sign that said "Harry is my hall pass," and she recorded his reaction, and he did a full-on double take on stage, and like gave her this little smirk. It was funny, and I think Anna Kendrick did an interview where she talked about being people's hall passes and how like it was weird, but then she was like, "Sure, let's go."
Love Anna Kendrick.
Is she your hall pass?
No, I don't have one. You're my hall pass.
Oh, whatever. Okay, no, for real though.
You're my hall pass.
Give me a real list.
No.
Do like your top 3.
Fine. So number 1 is Anna Kendrick.
Yes.
Number 2, Scarlett Johansson.
Uh-huh.
Number 3, Natalie Portman.
Ooh.
No, scratch that. Lily James. It used to be Natalie Portman because I had a huge crush on her. But Lily James. Okay. So who's your hall pass? Sis.
Top 3?
Sure. Zac Efron.
Yes.
Adam Driver.
Yes.
And who's the third?
Jensen Ackles.
Oh, that's right. I knew that.
I love how you knew the first 2.
I knew the
Off
third
top
one too.
of
I
your
just,
head.
yeah.
You always forget Jensen.
I know.
Gosh.
Surprising. I have a man crush on him.
I know, right? I also saw this TikTok where people were like spreading their nostrils to get a better inhale.
Okay.
You should try it.
Oh, that's weird.
Because you get like a full breath.
Okay. Well, you can just breathe longer.
But that's not as easy. I don't know.
I think it's easier rather than lifting your arms up to go.
But it's more fun that way.
No.
I want to like wear a little contraption that spreads my nostrils so I can breathe through my nose easily all day. But
Okay.
but when nobody's home, because I work from home and nobody would know.
Except for the people you're on the phone with, you just be breathing like.
They wouldn't know. They wouldn't know.
Okay. Whatever you say.
Okay. So, are you ready for my story?
I'm ready. You were talking it up, so I'm really excited for it.
So my story is actually going to be a 2-parter.
Oh no.
No, it's really good. So I'm going to do half of it today and the other half for next week's episode.
Oh, okay. You don't want to do 2 in a row?
No.
Okay.
It's going to be really long if I try to fit everything in
Okay.
right now. And in today's first half, I'm actually telling you 6 different stories.
6?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, don't sound too excited.
No, I'm excited.
Okay.
I'm excited.
Sure. Okay.
I'm excited.
Okay. So today I'm telling you a story about a man named Frano Selek, Kostis Mitsotakis, Martin Tott, Roy Sullivan, Melanie Martinez, and Jason and Jenny Cairns Lawrence.
Okay.
All of these people come from different backgrounds,
Cool.
different places around the world, different time periods, but they all have one thing in common. They are incredibly unlucky people.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So let's start with Frano, Mr. Selak.
So they have like no ties to each other whatsoever besides their bad luck?
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Sounds good.
All of them at different points in their life have been coined some of the unluckiest people in the world.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
How do they know that? How do they measure that? How do they measure luck? Is it like how bad it is, or how often bad things happen to them?
Yeah, probably. Well, let me tell you these stories,
Okay.
and then you can judge it for yourself.
Okay,
So,
sounds good.
Mr. Selek, Frano. He was
Selek?
Selek.
Okay.
It's Selak.
Okay.
He is Croatian.
Oh,
Am I saying it wrong?
I don't know. I don't speak Croatian.
You know, you're full of surprises, Mr.
Selak? Maybe Selak?
Selak? Okay, I'll go with that.
Cool.
So he was born June 14th, 1929, and his profession in life was a music teacher.
Cool.
In January 1962, when he was 32 years old, he was riding in a train. While he was riding, they were going through a rainy, cold cabin, and a boulder fell onto the tracks, causing the train to fly off of the tracks and into a river. Salak was pulled to safety by an unknown passenger. 17 people drowned. He walked away with a broken arm and hypothermia.
Okay.
In 1963, just a year later, his mother fell ill, so he went to go see her. He went to go take his first plane ride ever, but the plane was full. Essentially, he begged the pilot and everybody to let him on, saying this was dire circumstances. He didn't know if he would make it for his mother, her last breath,
Mm-hmm.
So they finally let him on. This was 1963, different time.
Yep.
But he had to sit in the very back with a flight attendant. While they were flying, the plane started to malfunction. The back door in the plane flew off and he was ejected from the plane.
Oh no.
The plane crashed, and so basically when he was ejected, he fell 800 meters, which is 2,625 feet, and he landed in a haystack. Walked away essentially unharmed, whereas the plane crashed and 19 people were killed. That was also his last plane ride.
Okay.
First and last.
So did he walk the rest of the way?
Probably. I don't know. That was the end of that story.
Okay.
I didn't.
Because I mean, that'd be kind of sad if he wasn't able to make, seeing his mother one last time.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what happened with that. I just know that I'm sure he was pretty shaken up by falling half a mile after being thrown out of an airplane.
Right.
So.
Don't sign me up.
So, 1966, at age 36, Salak boarded a bus, and he, I guess, knew the bus driver pretty well, and the two of them both took a shot together of some alcoholic beverage. First red flag. The bus, as they were driving, the bus skidded off of the road into a river. The driver and Salak were able to make it out and swim to shore with minor cuts and bruises, but 4 people died on the bus that day. 4 years later, in 1970, at 41 years old, while he was driving, his car caught fire. He escaped the car before the engine blew up.
Okay.
3 years later, while driving, his fuel pump malfunctioned, dousing the engine with hot oil. Flames shot through the air vent, and the only damage that he had was that his hair was singed off.
So he was bald?
Pretty much.
Cool.
1995, at the age of 66, he was hit by a bus. He only sustained minor injuries in your face.
Okay, so this is the unluckiest man. From the sound of it, he comes out luckier than everyone else that's around him.
Well, a lot of the articles that I read, they said that it could either be the unluckiest or the luckiest for him specifically.
Fair enough.
Just depends on if you see the glass half empty or half full.
Fair enough. Okay.
The other ones, you can't really say that, but this one for sure.
Yeah.
So 1 year after that, 1996, while driving on a windy mountain, he was going around a turn and he almost hit a United Nations truck. But he swerved out of the way, thankfully, but then he hit a guardrail, and the guardrail came loose, and his car started to fall off the edge of a cliff. He managed to, I don't know if he was launched out or if he jumped out, but he managed to grab a tree branch on the side of this mountain, while his car fell 300 feet.
Damn.
Yep. 2 days after his 73rd birthday, he won a 900,000 euro lottery, which is equivalent to $1.11 million US money.
I'll take it too.
He bought 2 houses, a boat, and a lot of cars. He gave most of his money away, though, in 2010 to family and friends, and lived a humble, modest life, and died naturally at the age of 87 on November 30th, 2016.
I thought you were going to say something like he lost all of his property in a fire or something.
I know, I was expecting that. I was not expecting a happy ending for this guy.
Yeah,
but
good for him. I'm happy for him. Can I just say, I also feel that unluckiness with cars.
Oh my
Because,
gosh.
I mean, you've been there.
Oh my gosh. We have had the worst luck with cars.
Like, my very first car, I didn't know you when I had my first car, but that one was on the highway. It broke down.
I think I remember
Irreparable.
you telling me that.
Yeah. Irreparable.
Boy,
And then the second car, the red Mazda that I had, you were
when
there
we
for that
were
one.
engaged.
Then the freaking Jetta.
When we had a Jetta. That one worked all right. It just, like, every problem that you could have with it happened.
It was old. It was falling apart.
Other than it could drive.
Right. Right. No, the rearview mirror kept falling off, and
The antenna broke.
the antenna broke. The air conditioning was non-existent.
And so was the heat.
It blew air.
It blew air.
Not
but
hot,
like,
not cold, just air.
oh my gosh. The windows,
was
if you rolled them
horrible.
down, they wouldn't roll back up.
They wouldn't roll back up. You had to, like, force them up, like, pulling on them.
But hey, filling up the tank was pretty cheap. So.
Now we're doing okay. Yeah, right.
Well, and I was telling Kaylee the other day about Jeep number 1, Jeep number 2, and just, like, all of the issues with that. And you know what? That's a story for another time, but oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was a rough time.
We're
Anyway.
finally doing okay. Knock on wood. We're going to be fine. So that was story number 1 of our friend Frano Salak. All right. Unlucky person number 2. Kostis Mitsotakis, who is a man from Greece. He was a filmmaker, and he fell in love with a Spanish girl from a town called Sodeto, Spain. Sodeto. He moved to be with her and stayed in Sodeto after they split. So just this cute little quaint town. This was in 2011 during Europe's economic crisis, where crops weren't really growing, money was really scarce, people were struggling financially and everything. Every year...
I'm not sure I understand. Thanks, Harry.
That scared me really bad. Okay. Every year, there was a lottery. And so Spain every year had this big Christmas jackpot that they called the Fat One, or El Gordo.
Okay.
And every year, the town of Sodeto, Spain, would all go in on one ticket together. So basically, like, one person would buy, or like one organization would buy, and then you could buy like a stock of it.
Okay.
Of that ticket. And so the Housewives Association purchased one ticket, number 58268, and they went door to door selling the shares, and people could buy however many shares they wanted of this ticket.
Okay.
Every one of the 240 residents of Sodeto participated, but they forgot Kostis at the edge of town.
Oh, no.
They won $950 million. That was split between 240 people. This entire town became millionaires overnight, except for Kostis.
How many people did you say?
240. So their winnings, based on how many stocks they bought, ranged from $130,000 to millions per person, depending on how many stocks, which even $130,000 is life-changing money.
Oh, for sure. You know what I could do with that much money?
He was the only person in this town that did not win.
Oh, poor Kostis.
Talk about unlucky, right?
Oh.
Kostis thankfully had a really good attitude about it. He said he didn't feel unlucky. He even made a documentary about it, which the town graciously funded. And he did end up saying that a lot of the people changed, became more reserved because they had money and finances.
Mm-hmm.
People would disagree and say, like, no, we were just less worried. More like carefree because their needs day to day were taken care of. So he still lives in Sodeto today.
Good for him.
Oh, yeah, that one hurts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now just wait for this next one, which is also a lottery story. Okay, so this is the story of Martin and Kay Tott. They lived together in Watford, UK. This was 2001. And so financially things were a little bit differently then, but even still together, they were making about $34,000 a year.
Oh, okay.
Which is really low, One of their favorite pastimes was purchasing lottery tickets just for fun. and they would always buy the exact same number. They would base this number specifically off of their birthdays, how old they were when they met each other, the date they got engaged, and they even added their grandma's house, like the number to their grandma's house at the end, so they knew exactly like the same number every single time. And then they would just check it occasionally.
Cool.
One day they checked it and realized that 6 months earlier they won $3 million. But
oh no,
they couldn't find the ticket.
Oh no,
anywhere. So frantically, they called Camelot, which I believe is the company that helped like give out the money. They called Camelot and explained how they knew for sure it was their ticket, how they knew that it was the one that they bought, and how they just misplaced it. And they were able to verify the numbers. They were able to verify when and where the ticket was purchased. And they basically were like, yeah, it's your ticket. And they were like, sure, yeah, like, you're the winners, we'll give you the money. So they waited for weeks on end, and nothing happened. So they began to get really anxious. They started to spiral. So Martin started drinking a lot, and Kay lost a lot of weight unhealthily, until finally they heard that Camelot had no intention of paying the money because they didn't have the ticket. Oh. So they were encouraged to keep quiet, but of course they were mad. So they went very public with it. They went on several talk shows. The entire public was rooting for them. You know, they were standing behind them saying, like, they need this payout. They need this payout. It's not fair. You know, people make mistakes. Even, like, famous talk show hosts were saying, like, come on, Camelot, like, pay out. This is ridiculous. They even hired a lawyer and filed a lawsuit, but the court rejected it. Oh. So, Sir Richard Branson offered Martin and Kay an entire week's stay on his private island because he felt so bad for them and what they were going through. So they spent a week there. Their airplane tickets were premium seats, and they were given food daily by world's best chefs. And basically, like, this once-in-a-lifetime trip made them more depressed because they were like, this is the life we could have
if they had the money
that they won. So
let's go punch Camelot.
Right. Martin didn't want to stop fighting for the money, but Kay was just over it because it had been so detrimental to her health and to her relationship. So she's like, let's just move on. We never had it to begin with.
But they did, kind of.
But it was never, like, in their possession.
Yeah, but, like, they were owed that money.
Yeah, and, you know, for weeks they thought they were getting it. And so I'm sure they imagined what life would be like.
Oh, like planning everything out. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine how frustrating that would be?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, first week, like, yeah, we're getting this money soon. Let's go on this trip. Let's buy this house, this car, all this stuff. Mm-hmm.
And, they probably racked up credit card debt, too, thinking they'd be able to pay it off.
Probably.
Yeah. But basically, like, this killed their relationship, and they ended up splitting up because of it. So we don't hear about Kay anymore, but Martin tried desperately to just find answers, to find some, like, loophole or legal way in to get this money. And eventually he found a girl online named Tanya, who I guess had a similar experience, but she lived in Tennessee. And so she invited him to meet her in Tennessee, and wanted him to go to her church. And the church was run by a man who called himself Apostle. Apostle told him that the lottery was not in his destiny and that he needed to move to Tennessee and join their group.
You mean cult?
Yeah. Martin went back home to, you know, sell his belongings and pack up, but he couldn't get a visa, so he was like, screw it. Then he found out that Apostle was mad that he wasn't going to come back, so he ended up, like, financially ripping off, like, the rest of the cult members and just being really shady about it. So he's like, oh, dodged a bullet there. So he was almost in a cult. Weird little snippet. But anyways, he then tried to take more legal action, but it became too costly, so he finally decided to give up. Today, he lives with his girlfriend and is now a writer. He has a website that I'm pretty sure is just his name, martintot.com or something like that. I did look it up, and it's just like he does like music production a little bit and then
Nice.
writing, and he fully admits like he doesn't make a lot of money. He just does it because he enjoys it.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So.
What do they say? When you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is the story of Martin and Kate Tott. Pretty sad. They were coined UK's unluckiest couple or something like that.
Fair enough.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. This one was really fun to learn about, but also got a little sad.
Okay.
This is the story of
Miles. What? Continue.
Roy Sullivan. This is number 4 out of 6 for today.
Roy Sullivan.
Roy Sullivan was born February 7th, 1912 in Greene County, Virginia. He was a park ranger from 1942 to 1977 at Shenandoah National Park in Virginia. He was nicknamed the Human Lightning Rod.
Is it because he got struck by lightning a lot?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm about to tell you each time. So in April 1942, he was hiding from a thunderstorm in a fire lookout tower. This tower was newly built, so there was no lightning rod at the time. And the tower itself started to get struck by lightning. It was struck about 7 or 8 times. Sullivan said that fire was jumping all over the place, and he ran out of the tower. And a few feet away from the tower, he got struck by lightning. It burned a half inch strip along his right leg. It hit his toe and left a hole in his shoe. So that was 1942. So he was 30 years old.
Okay.
27 years later, July 1969, he was driving his car while during a storm. A lightning bolt hit a tree and then deflected from the tree into an open window of his car. He was knocked unconscious. His car stopped near the edge of a cliff. It burned off his eyebrows, eyelashes, and then set his hair on fire.
Dang. And he's unconscious during that?
Yep. I will note, too, that usually cars act as a Faraday cage. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but basically what that is those big metal cages that people can stand in, and it blocks electromagnetic fields, and cars can act as that. So it was really unusual that he was hit in his car, but because of how, like, the window was open, and I don't know, maybe cars were structurally different back then that allowed it to pass through, but yeah, he got hit. So that was 1969. 1 year later, exactly 12 months later, he was standing in his front yard, and a lightning bolt hit a nearby power transformer and jumped to his left shoulder, searing it.
So he got burned all over.
Oh, yeah.
Literally.
2 years later, in spring of 1972, he was inside the ranger station at Shenandoah National Park, and it didn't give specifications on like how exactly this happened, but he did end up getting hit while he was in the ranger station. His hair caught on fire. He tried to smother it, so he rushed to the bathroom, and his head wouldn't fit underneath the sink, so he just got a towel and like wet his hair.
This poor guy.
I know. So this was actually the 4th time, and he never considered himself a fearful man, but after the 4th strike, he changed completely. He started to believe that some force was trying to destroy him. He got like this huge fear of death. During storms, if he was driving, he would pull over and lay down in the front seat until the storm passed. And he always carried a can of water for his hair. And he...
I mean, I would too, honestly, because after all the times that his
4 times, right?
His hair catches on fire, like...
Yeah.
Something's going to happen again.
He also was pretty paranoid. He believed that he was attracting lightning, and that even if he were in a crowd of hundreds, he would be the one to get hit. So that was spring 1972. This next one is a year later, August 1973. He was on patrol at the park. A storm rolled in, so he decided to get in his car and drive away. He thought that he had outrun the storm, but the clouds seemed to have followed him. He stayed in his car until he thought he was safe, and then as soon as he stepped out, he got struck. He saw the bolt that hit him. It moved down his left arm and down his leg, and then moved to his right leg just below the knee. He crawled to his truck, grabbed his can of water, and poured it on his head, which was on fire.
At least he was prepared this time.
I know. This poor guy, though, he's like, okay, I'm in the clear, steps out. Boom. Like... Okay, Mother Nature. Thank you.
Poor Roy.
All right, so time number 6. This was just 3 years later. Let me make sure that's right. Yep, 3 years later. So it was June 5th, 1976. He injured his ankle running from a cloud. He was still struck. His hair caught on fire. A year later, June 25th, 1977. He was fishing, and while he was fishing, he was struck on the top of his head. It traveled down, burnt his chest and stomach, and his hair caught fire. He got up to run to his car, and there was a bear. So he grabbed a tree branch, hit the bear with a stick, with the branch, whatever, and then ran to his car to put out the fire that was on his head. And, fun fact, according to him, that was his 22nd time hitting a bear with the stick.
Really?
Yeah.
Guess as a park ranger, you run into a lot of them, but...
But the fact that he had the strength to do that with his hair on fire...
I mean, like... it was probably all calloused or something. I don't know.
Well, and I'm sure, probably... like, fire probably wasn't necessarily, like, a flame.
Right.
Because it could have been just, like, burning.
Right. I mean, if it was, like, a huge flame.
So that was the 7th and final time that was recorded. There is an honorable mention that he claims that he was struck as a child while working in a field with his dad, but he came out uninjured and he can't prove that one, so he doesn't necessarily claim it on his list of 7. And one time he was in the yard with his wife, and they were hanging clothes in the yard, and his wife was the one that was struck.
Oh.
And he walked away unharmed. So... lucky him, not so lucky for his wife.
Like, yeah, how does it feel? I'm just kidding.
And I do have some fun statistics about lightning that I wanted to share.
I think my grandpa was hit by lightning.
Really?
At one point. I think so. I'll have to ask my dad, but I'm pretty sure that happened.
Ouch.
Mm-hmm. He's been through a lot.
Yeah, no, that's insane.
Yeah.
Okay. The odds of being struck by lightning for over the period of 80 years has been roughly estimated as 1 out of 10,000. If the lightning strikes are independent events, the probability of being hit 7 times would be 1 to the 10,000 to the 7th power, or 1 with 10,000 zeros. I don't know what that number is.
A lot.
Yeah.
I think that is the mathematical term for it.
Yes.
A lot.
These numbers do not quite apply to Sullivan, however, who by the nature of his work and his physical location was exposed to more storms than the average person. Virginia, where he lived, averages 35 to 45 thunderstorm days per year, most of which fall in June, July, and August. That's so if you remember in the story, a lot of them happened June, and then July, and then July, and then August. Yeah. So between 1959 and 2000, lightning killed 58 people and injured at least 238 people in Virginia. In the United States, 3,239 people were killed and 13,057 were injured by lightning in the same period. Most of these were males between the ages of 20 and 40 caught outdoors.
Interesting.
Lesson learned, never go camping, never go into the wilderness.
I also hear, like, being under a tree and everything during a lightning storm. There was one story that I read about that there was a group of people during a lightning storm that went and hid under a tree. Lightning struck the tree and it declothed them. So they were all naked.
I mean, if they're all naked, that's not that bad, right?
Right.
It would be awkward if you were the only one. It was the lightning, I swear.
That'd be Roy. Poor Roy.
All right. Speaking of poor Roy, so actually this is kind of cool. He's in the Guinness Book of World Records for a person struck by lightning more recorded times than any other human being.
Fair enough.
But unfortunately, he passed away by suicide on September 28th, 1983 at the age of 71.
Poor guy.
Yeah, so this really haunted him. I didn't read too much about his personal life, but it did say his marriage also ended the same year that he died, so I don't know if it's because he died or if because he ended up getting a divorce. I'm not sure, but
gotcha.
Yeah, it was just a bad year for him.
I'm surprised that after all the times he got struck by lightning, he didn't get any superpowers or anything like that.
Yeah, he did get paranoia.
True.
But, yeah, 7 times. That's a lot.
There's a lot.
Well, and you realize how paranoid he got. That must, I mean, not that I thought that getting struck by lightning was a good time, but that must really just hurt,
Yeah.
you know? Okay, I have two more. The next one is pretty short. So this is Melanie Martinez from Braithwaite, Louisiana, which is a rural of New Orleans.
Okay.
She has been in the eye of 5 hurricanes, and all 5 of them destroyed her home completely. So the first one was Hurricane Betsy in 1965. The second one was Hurricane Juan, 1985, so 20 years later. And then 13 years after that was Hurricane George, and then Hurricane Katrina in 2005. And then the last one was Hurricane Isaac in 2012. So, sad story about the Isaac one. A few months before that, she was actually on an A&E channel show called Hideous Houses, and she was given a $20,000 home makeover. And it wasn't necessarily because her house was ugly, but it was because the producers of the show loved her story about surviving 4 hurricanes.
Mm-hmm.
And they made her home beautiful, and they gave her all these nice upgrades, including a really nice plasma screen TV. And then a few months later, Hurricane Isaac hit. They said that every time there was a hurricane, they would book it out of town. But this time, she had her mom there that was 74, and their car broke down. So they decided to just stay there and just hope and pray for the best. But then, of course, they started to get flooding in their home. They got about 8 feet of water. So they had to climb into the attic. They grabbed a hammer and put holes into the roof so they can climb out. And they ended up having to sit on their roof with their dogs and kittens. I think it was like 3 dogs and like 4 kittens until they got rescued. And
does it say how long they were waiting?
No.
Okay.
Mm-mm. But they were rescued, and Melanie, when she was interviewed, had good spirits about it, and she just said that she was grateful to be alive. And somebody asked her, why would you stay in Louisiana? And she, hold on, I have the actual quote. That's what I'm wondering, is why would you stay? Why would you stay in Louisiana after 5 times of your house being lost? And she says, well, I live in Louisiana. I was born here. It's home, home, home. But we would want to move somewhere that's hilly, you know? A house on a hill. Same.
You want to live in a house on a hill?
If my house has been flooded 5 times and destroyed, yes, put me on the tallest hill. So that is Melanie Martinez. And then this is the last story that I have for you today.
Real quick, I have a little story.
Uh-huh.
So when I was a kid, we lived in like a little tiny kind of dairy farming village out in the countryside.
Sure.
Really nice area. But there was one year where we got a ton of rain. Like a ton, which is pretty, during that time we were going through a pretty bad drought as well. So it's pretty
unusual. It
was pretty unusual. Oh, I wish I could show you exactly how it was, but because remember when we went to Australia and we went to our old house?
Mm-hmm.
There's going into the town that we were close to, Willow Grove. There was, we lived more elevated than it. We had to go down some hills to get there, and that whole area, like leading up to the hill, was completely flooded. It was flooded. Like we could not get to school.
That's
which
really
was kind of cool as a kid, Oh, it was whack. I thought it was the coolest thing ever though, because when we did go, when we were finally able to make it across, there was like a little river there with a bridge and everything, and that was still a little bit higher than the actual road. But my dad, he's very adventurous. He loves off-roading, I guess what you Americans call it, four-wheel driving. So he'd just drive through this, and it was pretty fun. That's what that kind of reminds me of. But yeah, we lived on a hill because of that reason. Well, not because of that reason, but
yeah, that's just, it's
nice
cool when it's not harming you.
Yes.
Well, and Hurricane Ian happened just recently in Florida, and I follow a lot of people on social media that live in Florida, and so they've been showing like the aftermath of their towns and things, and it's devastating, like the amount of destruction that happened. But then every once in a while you see just some family like in little pool floaties just going down the road. It's like they're making the most out of the situation. It's really cool. Like, rest in peace to everyone who passed away, and condolences to everyone who lost everything. But it's really fun to see the videos and pictures of people like doing the best they can to make light of the situation.
Right.
There was one girl who posted a video, and she's like, you haven't lived until you floated in a little kiddie pool in your living room. And it literally showed her in a kiddie pool and all of her furniture floating in like 6 feet of water.
Oof. I like to think that if that ever happened to us, we'd be that family too.
Like trying to make the most of it.
Yeah.
I think as long as we knew that we would survive it, then yeah.
Yeah.
But if I'm still fearing for my life, I'm not going to be having a good time. Or your life, or Harper's life, you know.
Or any future kids.
Again, not an announcement. Stop doing that. Oh.
My mom hates it when I do that.
I hate it when you do that.
She'd be like, you know about the story of the boy who cried wolf? I'm like, yes.
Melody, Miles is pregnant. Just kidding. Okay, the last story that I have. This is a story of Jason and Jenny Cairns Lawrence from the Midlands. In 2001, they decided to go on vacation to New York. It was September 11th.
Oh, no.
On their vacation, they were interrupted by the worst terror attack in the history of the United States, which you would consider, you know, once in a lifetime experience, except for 4 years later, on July 7th, 2005, they decided to take a vacation to London. And if you know anything about London's history, that day was the worst terrorist attack in London's history, where bombs were set off in the public transit system, killing 52 people and injuring 700, which was the first suicide attack of its kind in the country's history.
Wow.
And they were there for that. They survived, but they were there. 3 years later, on November 26, 2008, they vacationed in Mumbai, India. During that trip, gunmen from a Pakistani terrorist group attacked several landmark buildings in the city. There were bombs and there were guns going off, and overall it killed 164 people.
But they still survived?
Yeah.
Okay.
So these two, Jason and Jenny, survived. They are no longer married, but this is what Jenny had to say about the Mumbai situation. Having witnessed these cities in the immediate aftermath of their respective tragedies, the couple offered the press some observation on the mood. Jenny told the Telegraph of Calcutta, India, "I can't imagine somebody opening his shop the next day after his brother was felled by terrorists. He looks sad, but he is ready to pick up the pieces of his life and move on. As I look around, it's impossible to tell that such a ghastly thing had happened. In New York, people carried the look of terror in their eyes for weeks after the carnage. In London, the police appeared more scared than the people." In the same article, Jenny further explained her perspective on the series of unfortunate events which followed her vacation plans. "I shouldn't be laughing about it, but it's some strange coincidence for sure. The terrorist attacks just happened when we were in the cities. Maybe we'll think about putting it down on paper someday, but neither of us is a good writer." End quote. So again, making light of the situation. But can you imagine like being in Mumbai and being like, "Are you kidding me? Again? Freaking again?" It reminds me also of that one movie that we watched with Owen Wilson.
Oh, the one where he's in like a foreign country and then okay, yeah.
I can't remember what it's called.
Me neither.
That one is.
It's a Netflix show, but
that one is so intense.
that one was really intense.
Now imagine being in that scenario 3 times
Nah, I'm good.
while you're on vacation. I
I
would
think-
never vacation again.
I think we're just gonna stay home for the rest of our lives.
So this couple, they're not together anymore. And another article, one of Jason's friends said that none of it ever happened. Like, not that the terrorist attacks didn't happen, but that they weren't actually there for each event. That they were like a town over, or they went a few days later, or whatever. But Jenny's quote made it seem like it was legit and that it happened. So I'm not exactly sure what's true, but if it is true, they are still considered some of the unluckiest travelers.
Right.
They were coined tourist of evil omen from the people of India. And there were actually a lot of articles that were like, "Jason and Jenny, you can't come here." Like, please don't come here. So
Imagine having that reputation.
I just want a mimosa on the beach. Just kidding.
No.
But yeah, so that was a lot, but those were 6 of the world's unluckiest people. And next week I'll come back at you with 7 more.
7 more.
7 more.
That equals 13, which is also an unlucky number.
I didn't even think about that. You're right.
What is the fear of triskaidekaphobia? The fear of the number 13?
Okay, the fact that you know that word off the top of your head.
Everyone knows that word off the top
I
of their heads.
didn't.
Well, you do now.
Say it again.
Triskaidekaphobia.
Triskaidekaphobia.
There, now you know it.
Triskaidekaphobia. Never gonna remember that.
You're just going to bring just bad luck on us now, on this household.
Nuh-uh, I'm just a reporter here. Don't shoot the messenger.
Okay.
All right, what'd you think?
Yeah. Interesting. I'm glad, I feel sorry for those people.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not them.
Out of all 6 of those stories, which one would you least not want to have happen to you? Does that make sense the way I said that?
I think the hurricane one, Melanie?
Mm-hmm.
I think Melanie's story. Because having to rebuild your house 5 different times, I don't know if I could do that. I'm like, yeah, easy, problem solved. Like, just move away,
Yeah.
whatever. But like, sometimes it's not that easy. Sometimes, you're put in a situation where you can't leave.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff,
Well,
but
thankfully, she wasn't actually there with each one, but she also lived in an area where they, kind of knew that these things were going to happen.
Yeah.
Just like going back to Hurricane Ian, there were a lot of people that were preparing for it, recognizing that there's a possibility they could be leaving their house and returning to nothing.
Right.
So
that would be horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And like I love storms, any kind of severe storm and everything, but the destruction that especially hurricanes cause, I don't know if I could do it.
I guess you probably wouldn't say severe then, because if you're anything like me, you like the storms that are like hardcore, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
But when they get to the point where they're causing destruction like that, I no longer enjoy them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I get what you mean.
I like the kind of storm that you can sit on your porch, whatever, and watch, or maybe from the window if it's bad enough.
Right. Like, I love the storms that it's like, causes power outages and stuff like that, and then you have to rely on candlelight to see. I love that.
But doesn't risk your life.
But doesn't risk your life. Exactly.
Kind of like that snowstorm that we had a couple years ago.
Yeah, that was
where
fun.
We were stuck inside for 4 days.
And your parents lost power for how long? Like three days?
I think it was 3 days, yeah. But they had their wood burning stove and they have water supply and stuff like that. So they were okay. They just told me they were bored because they didn't have their phones or TV.
Or anything like that.
And they were stuck inside the house. They couldn't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I think I agree with you. One about Melanie. I think the one that I don't know, the one that I would be okay with happening to me is the one with the town.
And winning the lottery.
Winning the lottery where the whole town won it except for you. Because, and he had a really good attitude. I would kind of bite. But if you think about it, if the whole town becomes wealthier overnight, then technically so do you, because you are a byproduct of that.
Right.
People can pay more money with their jobs. People are more willing to spend money on commission, because he was a filmmaker. So commission pieces. People donated for him to create a documentary, so it essentially you also in turn get a little bit of a elevated life because of it.
I'd be okay with that. Yeah.
Especially if you're in a town of 240 people and you're the only one that doesn't have this money, I sure as heck would feel so bad for them. I'd be like, here,
right,
have a donation.
Right.
Here's a 5% of what I made.
Especially the people with $1 million, 5% of that.
It's like, hey, Costas, here's $20. Oh, are you sure? Oh yeah, thank you. Okay. Next person, hey Costas, hey, here's $200. Oh, thank you. You're so sweet. Just keeps going.
That
on
reminds
and
me.
on.
This is kind of unrelated to luck, but have you ever thought about I don't know, starting some kind of campaign where everyone you meet, you just ask for $1 from them? Just $1. That's not a lot of money. $1 is not a lot of money, But if like you got everyone to donate $1 to you, you'd be hecka rich.
I've seen people talk about that before. Like, we could wipe out everyone's debt if everyone donated $1 to someone.
Right.
You
Like
know?
honestly.
It's like for me, I just need 6,000 people to donate $1. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's a lot of people, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
But I mean, like you think about, I guess America spends more than what they're bringing in and everything. But
If you'd like to pay off my student debt, my Venmo is. Just kidding.
we also have a little bit of credit card debt.
Ugh, credit cards, they're the worst. All right, we've been talking for quite a while, so we should probably wrap this up.
Okay. Hey, thanks for those stories.
Yeah.
Definitely gives you some insight to how not unlucky you are.
Yeah, I'm grateful for my life, and now I just feel like I need to throw some salt over my shoulder, do a couple Hail Marys, knock on some wood.
Spin around 3 times.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Get that evil away from us.
Not today, see.
Well, thank you, Courtney. And thank you, listeners, for again listening to another wonderful episode of Fam Damily.
If you have any story suggestions, email us at famdamlypodcast@gmail.com.
I've already got a lot of requests from, family and friends and everything. So we have some content for a little bit.
But keep suggesting.
Keep
because
suggesting.
Miles
We love
has
it.
that list, and I don't.
We love it.
All right, guys.
Deuces, gooses.